Hi, I'm Jessica Hartz, and I am a junior high English teacher in the Cedar Falls Community School District. And today I just want to walk you through a little bit about learning-based grading and how we're using that in the junior highs. So, first off, in the digital world, it gets a little confusing because we use all sorts of platforms. We use Schoology and we use PowerSchool. And I'm going to use examples from my English class, but most of these will apply for other classes as well that your kids are taking in the virtual world. So, first off, there is a big difference between these two platforms. Schoology is not a grade book. It's not a grade book at all. So when you look at Schoology or your student looks at Schoology and they see feedback from their teachers, that is not necessarily related to their final grade. A lot of the work that we do in Schoology is practice work with the skills that we need to know and be able to do when we get to the final test, final assessment, activity, project, paper. And so we're practicing a lot in there. And so we tell kids where they currently are in that skill set. Sometimes we give written feedback. Sometimes we'll give it in terms of a number as well. And we do use Schoology to put their final tests on there as well. But because we have practice work and a lot of it in Schoology, along with our final assessments, you do not want to use Schoology to determine your child's final grade. You want to use PowerSchool. Once teachers get to the end of a unit and they have quizzes and they have tests and projects and whatnot, they will put the final scores of where your kid fell at the end of those units in those skills. And that is exactly related to your child's grade. So the grades in PowerSchool that you are seeing is how your kid ended up at the end of those units with their learning and where they ended up with those skills. And those numbers, those assignments are related directly to the kids' grades. So again, Schoology we use for getting assignments out there, giving feedback to kids, for kids to turn in assignments to us, but it's not directly related to their final grade. Whereas PowerSchool is used for those final grades and where you want to go to see what your kid has in class or in final assignments. And we also use PowerSchool for attendance. You can check your kids' attendance there. Now, one thing that is really important to note in learning-based grading is we aren't really going to see assignments out of 25 points. We break down assignments into skills so that you know exactly what skills kids need to work on. So every assignment that goes in the grade book, you will see it on a 4-point scale. So sometimes your student will be taking a test that is assessing 4 separate skills, and your child then will get 4 different grades for that one test and a 4-point scale how they did with each skill. So the 4-point scale works like this. A 4 means your kid is rocking it. They've got it down. They've got that skill down at high levels. They've got it. A 3 is that average range where they understand it at an okay level, but they're not at that high level that the 4 is. And so there's still room to grow, but they're still good with it. Like they can get by. They've got that at an average level. Now, a 2 means they're so close to getting that skill down. They're almost there. They're just not there yet. And so your teachers want to work with those students to get them there. And then 1 is, wow, we really don't have an understanding of this yet, but we can get there. So a couple of things to note again is this 4-point scale will be used with every skill your child is assessed on to see how they're doing. And it won't be all merged in together into an assignment out of like 25 points or 100 points. It'll have individual school scores. So like for English, if we're working on a paper, they might have a score for grammar that is different from a content score that they know how to elaborate, or another content skill where they can use good textual evidence. Those skills are broken down into separate pieces. Now, our brains naturally want to equate a 4 to an A and a 3 to a B and a 2 to a, we just want to go down the scale. But our school district works on a 4-point scale, not a 5-point scale. So it doesn't work that way. So you don't want to ever equate the number with a letter grade. We use something called the final grade determination when we work with strands, and it looks like this. And I'm going to come back to it in a minute. I want to tell you first what a strand is. Every class is broken down into strand. Here is the English 8 classes throughout the district and the 3 strands we use. Some classes, math or science, might have 4 or 5 different strands. So that's one thing you'll want to look at your kids' the class's syllabus to see how many strands they have. So what we do is we break down the essential skills in what we call strands, and you can think of them almost like a category. All the stuff in the boxes over here underneath reading are all the skills that kids have to show that they can do in the strand of reading. And then we give them an overall score. So we use all those essential skills to come up with one concrete score for the strand of reading. And then we do that in the other 2 strands as well, using the other various essential skills that make up that strand. And then we take those overall strands and we use the final grade determination logic rule here to figure out what a kid's grade is. So in those, we have 3 in English. In those 3 strands, I look at what a kid gets to determine their overall grade. If in those 3 strands, they're all 4s, I just see over here on the box that kid easy peasy has an A. Or if I have a kid who has 2 4s and a 3, again, this final grade determination tells me all 4s or mostly 4s and no 2s or 1s means that kid has an A. If I'm looking at those overall strand scores and it's mostly 3s with 1 4, then that child has a B, and so on and so forth. And so you can always access this on our district webpage, that we have this final grade determination that you can use, or certainly if you have any questions, you can reach out to a teacher. We all have copies of this. So what this looks like in the grade book, and I do apologize, there is a lot on this, this slide, but in English class, I have things, this is what my grade book looks like. I have things done in terms of strands and essential skills. So in my grade book, I have a flag, and you have that on your end as well. The flag means it's a strand. And all of these scores over here are all those skills that fell under that strand in the box that I had shown you before. All the skills we use to determine what their overall score is. And this child had these individual scores in the grade book. And so overall, when you take all those scores and put them together, this child got a 3 in that strand. And then it just goes like that, so forth. So here's another strand with the flag. And these were all their skills that determine that overall score of a 4. And then we're going to have that one more time for the 3rd strand. We have that. So when I look at the grade book, there's a lot of numbers here, but the only numbers that matter when we're determining the grade on the teacher side, and on the parent side, you can see this as well on PowerSchool, are those strand scores. So I'm looking at the 3, the 4, and the 4 over here. And what that tells me is that this kid has an A in this class because they have mostly 4s with no 2s and no 1s, okay? Now, in your side of PowerSchool, depending on how you are looking at it, so some of you are tech savvy and have it on your phones, and some are looking at it on a computer, it is going to, it's going to look like this. It's going to go straight up and down for you when you click into your student's class. So you go to the standards-based side, I believe, when you're on the web browser, and it's going to bring it up like this. And so you can see that over here, you don't have a flag on yours like I did in my grade book, but it does have it indented over to the left. And then all those essential skills that make up that strand fall beneath it. Now, one thing you will notice, and you probably remember from when your kid was in elementary school, that there were sometimes holes, things not filled out in PowerSchool, like so. You don't need to worry that your kid didn't do that work. It just means that the class hasn't gotten there yet. So you won't see a score there, and that's A-okay. Don't worry about that. But you can certainly just see where they are in their strand score when you look at those, and that should help you determine their grade. Now, I don't want to confuse you, but the one last thing is if you take a look at this slide and your kid is in one of these classes under the bullet points, this group is grading a little bit differently than the rest of the classes at the junior high level. So when you look at these right here, these classes are not using the thing I was talking about as a strand. They are just using the essential learnings to determine a grade. And this is actually a fairly simple way to figure out what a grade is as well on your end. So instead of having those overall strands, all of the grades that your teachers in these classes have assessed on will go in the grade book. And then those scores are averaged to an overall score like 3.2 or a 3.5, whatever. And that is used to determine your child's grade for those classes. And so if your kid's in one of these classes, they won't use what I had said before, but they will use that average of their scores. So these classes are still doing learning-based grading. It's just they're taking an average to determine the grades. If you have any questions, reach out to your kids' teachers because we love to help. And we know that sometimes this can be a little bit confusing as you're first navigating it first semester. So again, I just encourage you to reach out to the teachers if you have questions, and we would love, love, love to answer those. Have a great day.